Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Dr. Christopher Lewis, Director of Graduate Programs at the University of Michigan-Flint. Really excited that you're joining us today. Going to grad school is not always easy. It's definitely, it definitely can be stressful at times, and there are lots of things that you have to learn about being a student, about balancing and being able to understand the difference between that work life, that personal life, and being able to find that interplay between the two. That's why I love being able to bring you different people that can help you with that. And today we're having a conversation with Amanda Burleson, and Amanda is a member of our staff within counseling and psychological services here at the University of Michigan-Flint. And I asked her to come today to talk to all of you about balancing responsibilities and time management, because both of those topics are ones that from early on in your graduate school experience and throughout your entire time, you're going to have to work on, and there's going to be an ebb and flow and things that you're going to have to do because it's not going to stay the same. It's not going to stay static. There are going to be times where you're going to have to pivot, make a little bit of some different directions to be able to keep that, we'll say that balance in play so that you can make sure that you're going to be successful in this journey. So I'm really excited to have Amanda with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to her. Amanda, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis, for always including CAPS in your informational sessions and the Graduate Wellness Series. Like Dr. Lewis said, I am a counselor in the CAPS office. That's the University of Michigan-Flint Counseling and Psychological Services. And we provide individual counseling and group counseling, couples counseling, and also outreach events on campus for students so we can help students be successful in school despite whatever else they're going through. As we record this, it's mid-November, so it's very timely, I think, to have a discussion about balancing responsibilities and time management. This tends to be kind of a sticky point in the semester. So today we just want to take a minute, think about what it's like right now to be in graduate school, what you're experiencing, and what you feel you could envision for your future as you move forward in graduate school. A lot of times we are met with people saying, oh, well, you're lucky to be in graduate school. Or another kind of cliched saying is that if graduate school were easy, everyone would do it. And I've actually found myself saying that before until someone said, that's really not helpful. We may say, this is an investment in your future. However, when you're in the thick of it, those sayings don't resonate as well. And maybe it's because we're not having balance in our lives. A lot of times, graduate school seems to take up a greater portion of our lives than anything else. We may have faculty members or instructors who feel like their class needs to take up the most time in our lives. Or maybe you're doing clinical or internship, and that has to be forefront. So finding balance can be hard. I like this quote by Janet Kingsford, that balance is not something you find, it's something you create. We say finding balance a lot, but actually balance is something that you have to make happen. So here's just kind of an image about like you've got studying, you're worried about time, maybe you have family, and then how are you going to exercise or take care of yourself? These are just a couple things that you would have to learn how to balance. So what we're working on today, we are going to first talk about the experience people have of being a graduate student. We're going to talk about the importance of balance, what happens when you fall out of balance, how to create balance. We're going to briefly go through some breathing techniques and then talk about ways that you can manage your time and give you some more information about CAPS and our office on campus. So I wanted to start with just what it feels like being a graduate student. If you are joining and you want to add in the chat, you can do that as well. If not, maybe grab a piece of paper or your journal, or just kind of jot down or bring to mind what it's been like for you this far. Um, I created a meme, and here we have the graduate student experience, what I thought grad school would look like, right? So we've got Elwood's from Legally Blonde, and she's got her fluffy pen, her cute little notebook. She is ready for school. And then there's what you actually feel like sometimes at this point in your graduate school career, and your hair is a mess and your makeup is falling down and is not how you envisioned. And I think that's true for a lot of people. We feel excited and maybe a little bit nervous, but our sights are set on the future and thinking this is the wonderful thing we're going to do, forgetting that sometimes when you're in the trenches, it's ugly and it's hard and you're tired, right? And coming to terms with being okay with not being okay can be hard. All the things that you may have to balance, right? As you can see, this scale is loaded up. We've got studying, maybe you have an internship or clinical, there's classes to take, maybe make time for socializing with friends, you've got bills to pay, taking care of yourself sometimes falls down. Um, Maybe you work or have things that you have to do to maintain your home. Maybe you're raising a family. You have to prepare food for yourself or others. Sometimes when you're weighed down, making a meal and sitting down with a family and eating it, or sitting down with your friends or by yourself to just eat it, can seem exhausting. It might seem like, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to grab something on the way. I'll just eat it at my desk while I'm studying. It can be hard to maintain financial stability, right? And then managing your time with all these other things. So it's important to also recognize that when you are a graduate student, you have all these other roles to play. Um, we definitely wear a lot of hats. So you could be a parent, you could be an employee if you have another job, or you're working on campus. You're still a friend to people. Maybe you're doing a research assistant or a TA. So you've got another obligation at the school as well as your classes and your labs and exams. You might be a sibling, but right front and center, we've got graduate student. But just because you are a student, it doesn't cancel out all of these roles. You still are showing up to life in these roles. Some things that graduate students have noted is that there may be times, especially this time of year, where maybe friends or family or even employers may not understand the pressure that you're under. We're getting close to Thanksgiving, and a lot of times family and friends, why can't you come home for Thanksgiving? Oh, come on. It's just a couple days, right? Go ahead and take a break. They may not be understanding that by taking a break for Thanksgiving or going home or traveling, you're taking time away from studying. And so a lot of times that is pressuring for people. As much as you'd like the break, sometimes people say, no, I just can't do it. Um, Sometimes we feel like we have to devote our lives just to school. And so maybe there's some feelings of guilt when you take some time to spend it with your friends or going to visit your family or even taking time to care for yourself. So getting down into the nitty-gritty, I think, can be a way of validating what some graduate students are feeling. And I say some because not all. Not all graduate students are going to feel this way, and not all the time. There might be, like Dr. Lewis said, some ebbs and flows. There may be times where you feel like you are on top of things. And then the next week comes and you have 4 exams and 3 papers due, and uh, you're not getting enough sleep and you're not eating well and you're not exercising, and everything kind of feels like you aren't holding it together as well as you did before. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because graduate school is difficult. And as somebody who's been through graduate school, I understand the frustration and the burnout and the exhaustion that you can experience. Another thing that students have noted is that sometimes there's a sense of isolation. Even though you are on campus or online with a bunch of other graduate students, sometimes your experience can be isolating. We tend to not want to show vulnerability. So reaching out to someone saying, hey, I'm having a hard time can be very difficult. But one of my favorite sayings is on the other side of your comfort zone lies greatness. So sometimes you have to embrace that vulnerability. Sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone in order to become your best self. So we'll get into the importance of balance. Um, a lot of times we notice when we're out of balance, right? There's not a lot of times where we go, wow, everything's really lining up. Things are going good. I got this, right? We notice when we become exhausted. Um, you may be feeling like no matter how much you sleep, you just can't get enough sleep. Or sometimes you're so tired that you can't get sleep, right? You might be staring at the ceiling at night, or your thoughts are racing and you're just not able to grab that sleep. Sometimes your personal relationships are impacted. Like we said, schoolwork can take a toll on your relationships with your family and friends. Um, Loss of motivation is also a big sign. Of course, you need to attend classes, right? It might be hard. You may be dragging yourself to your lectures. You may be attending class online with your camera off because you just can't be fully present, right? You might notice you're starting assignments later than you would normally. Sometimes this might come through as lacking your inspiration or your creativity. So these ideas, project ideas, or how you're going to visualize something might be harder to reach when you are out of balance. Sometimes even feeling bored or uninterested in the things that you used to enjoy. And that doesn't just mean like for academic things, right? You might definitely become uninterested in your research topic as you spend hour upon hour reading journals about it. But you may also be uninterested in hobbies or activities or travel or even your favorite TV show. And that's important to notice. Like if you just don't have that feeling where you're like, oh, I can't wait to do this, your sense of excitement is gone. That's a sign that maybe your life is out of balance. Again, there could be a decline in your emotional health. Sometimes this is something that others will notice before you, right? If you're having feelings of intense anxiety, that bubbling in your chest, or maybe some butterflies in your stomach that you didn't notice before, and maybe feelings of depression, like you're just down and not able to bring yourself back up. A lot of times we'll combat those things, we overcompensate, we even increase bad habits to try to keep ourselves going. Maybe you're overeating or undereating, staying up too late. Other nervous habits like nail biting or skin picking, or anything that you've noticed that you do when you are stressed and not taking care of yourself. And so I'm going to talk about a case example. This is not a student at our university. This is actually um, presented by another university to help faculty understand what students may be going through. So this case example is Grace. Grace is struggling with trying to find balance between her difficult courses and especially this semester, she feels trapped. She feels like she's taking courses that are harder than she expected. She finds herself tearful and shaky around her friends, and that she's feeling anxious most of the time. Other students may be concerned about Grace and actually wondered if she should still be in the program. Grace herself worries that she needs to get at least all C's in her classes to maintain her status in her graduate program. And her job working in the lab is not giving her as much time to study as she was promised or told when she applied. She also doesn't think that she could talk to her lab manager because the lab manager is also the advisor for the academic program. So we break this down and we look at what are some of the warning signs that Grace is starting to feel burned out. One thing is she's having difficulty balancing her course load. And it doesn't really go into too much detail about this, but a lot of times if you have several hard courses, it's hard to prioritize which one you need to focus on the most. Or if you have 3 exams on the same day, how are you going to design your study time so that you can um, balance out each course with the amount of studying and preparation you're doing? Um, Another sign is that Grace feels trapped. Anytime that we're feeling trapped is almost a sense of anxiety or your body alerting you that there's danger ahead. We tend to get into that fight or flight motion when we feel trapped or we feel like there's no other option. Grace reported feeling tearful and shaky around friends, and to the point where it was noticeable to others that there's a change in her behavior. She's becoming more anxious. She's worried about her grades, but if you notice, she's worried because she needs to get all C's. And that can be a common concern. We say like C's and D's get degrees, but a lot of graduate students tend to adopt a perfectionist approach where no, I'm not getting C's. I'm getting A's and B's if I have to get a B. But at this point, Grace is like, I'm just worried about getting a C. So these are kind of warning signs that Grace could pay attention to. Not just Grace, but her friends, maybe even her faculty advisor and the lab manager. I wanted to point out some protective factors as well. And protective factors mean that not everything is going from bad to worse with Grace. She's still spending time with her friends. She may not be reaching out to them, but she is demonstrating that through her shakiness and anxiety that she's having trouble. Um, Although Grace may not be able to see it at this time, having a program advisor as a lab manager may not be the worst case scenario because you have already established a relationship with this person, whether it's been through the lab or as your advisor through the program. Um, and keep in mind as well, reaching out to a faculty member doesn't necessarily mean you have to share your full story. I talk to students, especially about selective sharing, right? You don't necessarily need to unload your entire like past with your faculty. You might just say, I'm having some trouble. Um, it feels like I'm trapped, or I'm not having enough time to study because I'm spending so much time in the lab. And your program advisor or your faculty member, a lot of times will refer you to CAPS and say, the CAPS is here. They have counselors that are available. Why don't you go make an appointment and talk to them? And at that point, you can kind of share more of the vulnerable details. And another protective factor with Grace's situation is recognizing the signs of burnout, right? Someone is seeing that she's not acting the way that she used to, and she's seeing it herself. One of the biggest things about balance is recognizing it early. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but recognizing it early so that you can get help and that you can have a greater sense of balance. We're noticing that students who do find themselves balancing life with school have a better personal well-being. Overall well-being, they feel is better. They report having higher quality relationships with peers and family and greater school success and enjoyment. So one thing, if you are joining live and you care to um, think about this or share, if you are watching this as a recording, again, just kind of spend some time thinking about maybe what is standing in your way. What is making it hard for you to find balance? And it may not be evident right away. This is kind of one of those questions where you may not know right away, but as you get going through your day to day and going to class and studying for exams, you might find, oh, this is what's getting in my way. This is why I'm not able to find balance. So again, we talked about not exactly finding balance, but learning how to create it in your life. And nature, getting out in nature is one way that you can find or that you can create some balance in your life. The biggest thing is recognizing this imbalance or even burnout. Sarah Waylett is the assistant director for the Center of Innovation and Leadership at Furman University. She also is the host of the Go Further podcast. She offers information for graduate students to help, like Dr. Lewis, to help them be successful and to um, learn about the experiences of graduate school. So she says that recognizing the early warning signs of burnout is crucial. And recognizing that burnout or imbalance can really blindside you. It can creep up on students because as a graduate student, you're so focused on meeting the next deadline, or you have really high expectations for yourself, or your faculty has high expectations on you. Maybe even your family has high expectations. And so your focus isn't necessarily on well-being, it's more geared towards performance. If you notice that you have an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, like we talked about, just not being able to get enough sleep, um, your body feels heavy, it's harder to get motivated. You may have increased cynicism, right? Like you might think like, oh, so I don't even know why I'm in this program anyways. It's not like, I'm going to get a job or, thinking like, oh, I'm never going to get this done. Right, that would be kind of cynicism. It's this negative worldview of things. And it can be also very specific to your experience. You may be finding less ability to cope with daily challenges. One of my favorite commercials, actually, it's from way long ago, but it was about a medication that was supposed to help with irritability. And there was a woman in the shopping center, and she's trying to get her cart out of the big stack of carts. And if you've experienced this, sometimes it is really hard. You like yank at the cart and it doesn't come loose. So you yank it a little bit harder. In this commercial, this woman is like just really letting those carts go, and she is screaming and she's upset and she's just, her hair is a mess. And the people in the grocery store are just looking at her like, what is wrong with you, lady? It's just a cart, right? She steps back and the worker, the grocery store clerk pulls the cart out, pushes down the little child seat protector, and gives her the cart, right? I think of that as less ability to cope with daily challenges. When you are at the end, sometimes a cart being stuck in the cart corral is more than you can handle at that time, right? And it feels like you just have to keep fighting that cart to get it out. I think it provides a good visual for what it's like when your coping is not available. So what can we do, right? We look at creating balance, but also remembering that being a good student or a good person, a good spouse, friend, etc., it doesn't mean you have to drop everything else. You can find your balance or create your balance if you can manage it well. Some of the things that we have like an assumption about is that balance is a continuum. It's very rarely black and white. It's not like I have balance or I do not have balance. You might find I've got balance in my studying. I can balance these classes. It's just my house, I can't keep up. Or, the kids are destroying everything and I'm not there to take care of things. Or, man, I'm balancing my the rest of my life, but school is falling behind. Some techniques that work for others may not work for you, and that's okay. It's trial and error and finding the things that do work. Getting very clear on your goals is really a key part of this. We may have to look at more long-term goals. We might have to look at what it is in the big picture, like a broad spectrum of your goal. Remembering why you're doing this in the first place, right? It's a little bit different than undergraduate school. A lot of times we feel like for undergraduate school, it's just that in between. It's a stepping stone to where you really want to go. Um, in graduate school, your goal is much more obtainable. It's closer, even if it doesn't feel like that in that time. Um, and that keeping those goals in mind gives you more of a sense of purpose, more inspiration, and can help you stay on the path. It's also important to remember that progress, it can be very incremental, right? You may not notice that you're becoming more balanced, right? Sometimes other people might say like, hey, I've noticed that you're really like getting to class on time, or, you're really stepping it up in clinicals. That's awesome. You might not notice it. It might be the smallest little thing, like you drank enough water today, or you got enough sleep. But remember that progress is progress, no matter how big or small. So a way to create balance is setting these goals at the beginning of the semester, but in the middle of the semester, it's still not too late, right? Sometimes we have to reconfigure those goals as we get through the semester. Um, in the beginning, you may not know exactly what the workload is going to be like, or you may not know what's going to be expected of you, or where you're going to be assigned for your internship or clinicals, or what research you're doing. So mid-semester is another good time to reframe those goals, relook at them, and find a time management strategy that's going to work for you. Sometimes you just got to reevaluate what tools you're using. With Google, you can have like your calendar on your laptop and on your phone, and they can be synced so that you are always seeing your calendar. There's like Google Keep where you can make notes. You can use the Google Tasks, which I think can show up on your calendar so you can arrange your tasks in a time blocking way. We're going to talk about time blocking a little bit too. Maybe you like your planner, I'm a paper planner person. I don't think that I've ever really completely made the shift to electronic planners. There's times that I do look at my electronic calendar and have to put it down on paper just because I'm a paper person. It's more of a tangible thing. And if that's you, go for it. Paper planners, you can put your stickers on there, you can doodle on it, you can draw, you can make it you. There's also some that are more like, they're more electronic calendars that you can still do those things on. It's just what works best for you. And don't be afraid to adopt a different kind of habit if that's what's necessary. Take a look at what tasks you need to do. Sometimes you need to look at each week. Sometimes you might have to look at a monthly basis what tasks there are. Setting aside time, whether it's for each day, for each week, each month, finding the time to do the things you need to do. And sometimes you even have to schedule in rest, right? You might have to write it in your calendar or your planner, like this is my break and this is non-negotiable. I'm taking a break here. Um, find gaps, right? When you have free time, if you're looking at your planner, looking at your calendar, you might find some holes, right? And those are important times that you don't have to necessarily fill with school. Maybe you can fill it with that rest. Maybe you can fill it with, okay, I'm just going to take a 20-minute walk, or I'm going to just zone out on TikTok for a couple minutes, but I got a timer set so I can tune back in. Um, Maybe you want to just scroll through social media for just a few minutes, and that's okay. If you schedule it in, you have the time to do that. Um, sometimes you have to get creative with your recharge time, right? Know what it means to you to recharge. There's a saying that if a doctor says that you need to rest, but you need to dance, then maybe dancing is resting for you, right? It's what you need to do to recharge. Sometimes take advantage of your driving time. Sometimes you need music to motivate you. You might need silence. Um, Sometimes if you're commuting, take a scenic route, right? We're always so pressured to get somewhere that we hop on the expressway and go. And the things we're paying attention to are the cars around us, right? Being mindful, taking a moment, looking at the trees, right? We've got some trees that are just absolutely gorgeous in their colors right now. We have some trees that have lost all their leaves and are preparing for winter. Taking that time to notice the things around you, notice the way that nature is progressing, noticing more scenic things can really help your stress level. It's good to make use of transition time, right? So again, if you are walking from your residence to your school building, you can take that time to maybe put in your uh, AirPods and listen to a podcast or listen to your favorite song. Put on a playlist that will get you from home to school, or a playlist that you know is going to be like your go-to study playlist, right? Some people can't study with music. Some people can. Sometimes you can get those lo-fi chill hop beats where it just puts you in that zone and make use of it. Also work together with a family member, a friend, or a peer, sometimes like a colleague, so you can hold each other accountable. There's a phenomenon of body doubling, and they discovered this when researching adults with ADHD, and sometimes kids too, that if two people who have difficulty focusing are in the same room doing independent tasks, they stay on task more than if they were alone or if they were engaging in the same task. So we call it body doubling. You just got another body next to you and you're staying focused. Maybe you send out a quick text to somebody and say, hey, look, I'm going to get this many flashcards done in the next half hour. And then check back with them like, yeah, I got this all done, right? Maybe people in your cohort, you can quiz each other, have study groups. Um, just keep each other accountable, because if you are the one holding somebody else accountable, it keeps you in check as well. So it's not just a one-sided transaction. It helps both people. Um, Again, recognizing the importance of self-care and prioritizing mental health. So self-care, when we were looking at the visual of the scale with everything piled on it, sometimes self-care can fall on the wayside. And it's unfortunate because a lot of times people will be more intent on helping others than helping themselves, right? If a friend says, hey, can you give me a ride somewhere? You're like, oh yeah, I gotta study, but sure, I'll take you. But if your body is screaming, hey, I need some time, we're like, no, I can't do this. I've got to study. Your mental health is important and it matters. One way of prioritizing this can be through mindfulness and like design thinking. This is being able to find clarity in your mind and also building emotional resilience. It can really help you reframe your challenges. Um, it helps you identify what is triggering your stress and then coming up with effective coping strategies. So if you are the woman in the commercial who is pulling at that shopping cart, one of the things that she could reframe this as is like, wow, I'm really having a difficult time right now. It's not this shopping cart that I'm upset with. It's just I'm seeing a lot of challenges, but I can get through this, right? Identifying the stress triggers. and being able to have effective coping strategies. So coping might just be walking away from something that you can't handle at that moment. A coping strategy could be reframing the challenge into a positive thought, like, I'm upset right now, but not forever. Or this thing is difficult for me, but I can get through it. So in doing that, not only are you kind of programming your brain to start releasing some coping chemicals, but you're also taking the place of all those negative thoughts running through your head. Sometimes we have so many thoughts, we don't notice what's going on, right? And so by doing positive affirmations or reframing things, you're shifting the way that you're thinking and you're shifting your brain as well. Sometimes taking deep breaths, or like people would say, oh, you need to count to 10. This is actually a game changer. It gives you a relief from the pressure right then. You're also bringing in more oxygen to your brain and releasing more of the breath that you may have been holding. Sometimes we hold our breath when we're frustrated or nervous or upset. And if you're holding on to your exhale, you're not breathing in as much fresh air. So taking deep breaths can help you recenter, can help you focus, can help you give more oxygen to your brain so your brain can think better. Um, oh, let me go back. Incorporating movement is important too, because we sit while we study, right? We're sitting in class. We do a lot of sitting. If you have to commute, you're sitting in the car. If you're online school, you're sitting in front of the computer. So being able to get movement, right? I tell my son all the time, dude, you need to go touch grass, like get outside, go do something. And sometimes we need someone to tell us, go move, you know? Your body is telling your brain, hey, I've missed you. Come back to me and pay attention to me. We think of this mind-body connection as really a lifeline, right? Your body and your mind are not two distinct things. They're incorporated together. But if we don't pay attention to both, it can get out of whack and we can find ourselves with an imbalance or unalignment. Making sure that you have time for laughter, being creative about things. It can express yourself. It can be an outlet for emotional release. And again, it gives you some endorphins. Um, there is a woman on TikTok. She is a neuroscientist, and I don't remember her name, but I can tag it back in the chat comments. But she has this thing where she tricks her brain to laugh. And so she says, say 5 ha's in a row. So you start with ha, and then you go ha ha, and then ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. And after 5 ha's, you can't help but laugh. One, because it feels kind of silly. And two, because your brain is like, oh, I know this. This is laughing. I got laughing. Okay. And in comes the smile, in comes the positive endorphins, and you're starting to feel better. Another trick that I learned actually in graduate school is if you put a pen or pencil between your nose and your top lip and you try to hold it there. And what it does is it mimics a smile. So again, your body is triggering your brain to say, hey, we're feeling good, we're happy. And if you have other hacks, brain hacks that make you feel better, maybe exercising, maybe listening to good music, maybe calling a friend, find those things that you can do, laughter or movement, or even breath work to help create that balance. So the benefits of mindfulness is more than just like reducing your stress. We talked a lot about changing your brain connections, right? So mindfulness not only trains your brain, but it trains your body. So you can learn to follow your breath. If you do yoga, you kind of visualize your breath entering your mouth and going through your esophagus and into your lungs and your diaphragm, and you just imagine where that breath is. And so it takes your mind off what is stressing you and helps you tune back into your body. It can also help to transform your fears. Um, I, what I was saying before about fight or flight is that sometimes your body will recognize when you are having anxiety or a fear of something before your mind even catches on. So you are already in this fight, flight, freeze mode before you recognize it. By tuning into your body and mindfulness, you can recognize when your body's getting tense, right? Like maybe your shoulders are pulled up, or maybe your hands are clenched, or you notice that you're getting hot or sweaty, right? You can train your body to recognize those and kick in the stress response and calming response. Sour candy is another way to kind of get that parasympathetic response going. So your brain is like, ooh, I'm soothing myself. It can strengthen your neural connections, um, building new neural pathways in the brain. I describe them as cow paths. So a cow, when it's let out to pasture, a lot of times it will take the same route time and time and time again. And it creates these deep ruts in the mud. And they call them cow paths because the cows have been wearing these paths. However, in the spring, the rain comes and it fills these paths with mud. So when the cows continue to use those same paths, they get stuck in the muck. Same thing with our brains. If our brains keep using that same pathway over and over and over again, we get stuck. And it can be hard to retrain your brain. So through mindfulness, it increases your concentration. You're having more flexibility in your brain and more awareness. Just like if you start lifting weights again after a long time of not doing it, your muscles are going to say, "Oh, this hurts." But as you do, as you consistently build up those muscles, you find out you can do more reps or you can do more weight because your muscles are building and it's not as hard as it was in the beginning. Um, Mindfulness can also boost your creativity because it can calm down distractive thoughts that are keeping you from generating new ideas. So when we talk about boosting creativity, it's not limited to like artistic abilities. It's coming up with new ideas, generating projects, generating research things, being able to brainstorm or even imagine. And once you increase your awareness, you can get a better grasp on your thoughts that are going through your head. And then, of course, stress reduction. That's one of the things that's a hallmark of mindfulness. When you reduce your stress, a lot of people feel kinder or they feel calmer or more patient. The biggest thing is that mindfulness can also help you separate yourself from your thoughts, meaning that you are not actually your thoughts, right? So if you are feeling like, man, I am really doing horrible in this class, that doesn't necessarily mean you are a horrible student. That just means you think right now that you're having a difficult time, right? So that's kind of separating yourself from the thoughts. I'm not a bad student. I'm having a difficult time. And mindfulness can kind of help you pay attention to the negative thoughts that we have and again, be able to try to flip those into more hopeful thoughts. A little infographic on how to do mindfulness. Basically, you want to take a seat, finding a place that is calm and quiet, maybe setting a time limit. Also, you could use an app. There's apps like Calm or Headspace, to name a few. Insight Timer is free. I think there may be a paid version as well. But those are some apps that maybe do some guided meditations. If you feel your mind wandering, or just don't even know where to get started. Um, you can set a time so that this is scheduled time for you. There's nothing else you need to do at that moment but pay attention to yourself. Um, Noticing where your body is, noticing how you feel, making sure that you're in a stable position, whether that's like seated down on your bottom, on a towel or a pillow, crisscross applesauce, maybe even lying down on the floor. I wouldn't recommend in bed because then you usually fall asleep. Um, Being able to feel your breath can go a long way. So I mentioned it before about in yoga, learning to follow that sensation as your breath goes in and out. One thing people can do is put one hand on your heart and you can feel your heartbeat. And you take the opposite hand and put it on your stomach so you can feel your diaphragm expanding as you take a breath. Um, Noticing when your mind is wandered because it's going to. And we call it monkey mind because your mind is just all over the place, right? And that's okay. If your mind starts to wander, notice it. Don't give any judgment to your mind and just come back to breathing, come back to noticing your breath. Um, Sometimes people say that being mindful or meditating is really especially hard for them because of all the thoughts that they have in their head. I hear a lot of times like, this doesn't work for me because I'm always thinking, and that's okay. Notice your thoughts. You can even imagine them as a puffy cloud and it's floating by. You don't reach out and grab the cloud. You just recognize that it is a cloud and it's floating by. So you recognize that thought and let it go by. But being kind to yourself is very crucial. And sometimes it takes some practice. Sometimes we learn how to be critical of ourselves in a way to motivate ourselves, right? People find that they work better under pressure in some cases. And so may inadvertently create pressure in yourself because you recognize that once there's this pressure, you're going to get the job done. However, being overly critical sometimes backfires, and you may be less likely to put in as much effort into something when you're being critical to yourself. So here's some, well, I think this is just one breathing technique. This is the box breathing. And what you do is you breathe in for 4 seconds. So it's a slower breath. And then you hold that breath for 4 seconds. After holding your breath, you breathe out. And then after you exhale, you hold again for 4 seconds before breathing in. Sometimes this takes some practice. I like how this is kind of guided, so it can show you how long to hold, how long to breathe, how long to exhale. And you can always look for other breathing exercises. There's like starfish breathing, where you draw the shape of a star with your finger as you're doing your breath. Um, there's a lot of different breath work where sometimes you are holding your breath. Sometimes you're breathing in very, very slowly. Sometimes you're visualizing your breath go through your body. The main thing is that you're paying attention to your breath and that you are kind of managing your breathing as you go. So it may not be like this quick breathing or like holding your breath in a negative way. It's just paying attention and redirecting your focus to your body while you're bringing in more oxygen to your brain. We'll take a bit on time management. I know we don't have a whole lot of time. The time management kind of pieced in throughout the presentation when we talk about balance. But I do want to give some tips and some strategies because it's really hard to create balance if you're not able to manage your time. So again, we talked about planners and scheduling. It's so important to allocate time for each thing that you need to do. Time blocking is a great thing you can do, especially like on a Google Calendar or even on a paper calendar or a paper planner that's divided up by hours or time of the day. You can block time for certain tasks, right? Um, if you like to be creative or artsy, maybe you're going to color code time for each class, right? Or do it in a way that is visually pleasing to you, because if it is, you're going to look at it more. If it's just like scribbles and X's and stuff, then it may be more frustrating. You're like, oh, I never have time to do anything I want. It's all school. Try to make it in a way where this feels good for you to plan your time. Prioritizing can be so difficult when everything seems like a top priority, right? You might have to look at which exam is coming first in time. right? And you may need to study for that one first. Or maybe look at, what do I know for this class versus what do I still need some work on? That way you can plan your study time to focus on the things you still need to work on and prioritize those over the things that you've already got down pat. Um, you can categorize these tasks. I think in some calendars, you can flag them like with the red, yellow, green, right? Like red is like this, it needs to be done now. And yellow might be like, oh, it's not as big of a priority. And green is the lower priority. And that helps you get a visual of what needs to be done. Um, Giving yourself specific time slots for things, minimizing distractions. Um, it's hard to turn off notifications on your phone, right? Or even on your computer. It's difficult. You think like, well, what if somebody wants to get a hold of me? Or what if somebody needs me? Or what if? It doesn't have to be notification free forever, but maybe put on the do not disturb, or maybe, set your phone to study time for a certain amount of time. Um, that way you can work uninterrupted. And having a quiet place is important too. So you're not getting interrupted all the time. If that's not possible, maybe throw on some headphones. Even if you don't have music playing, those headphones can kind of create almost like a white noise to keep you focused. Make good use of your breaks. Yes, breaks. You have to take breaks. Breaks, even short breaks, even like a 5-minute break to clear your mind. It helps you refocus and refresh and reduces the amount of burnout. Schedule yourself longer breaks for relaxation and exercise. And relaxation is what you feel relaxes you. It doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be going for a walk. It doesn't have to be nature, but whatever you find is relaxing for you, schedule it. Make sure that it's a priority. A little bit more about the CAPS and psychological services. So if you haven't had experience with CAPS before, I wanted to share the mission of CAPS, and it is to assist a diverse campus and help students define not only academic goals, but their personal goals, professional goals, and through proactive counseling. So our counseling services are brief and solution focused, meaning it's responsive and supportive, but also working towards a solution to help you do the best you can, work towards your best self. We provide services to students and also provide education to the entire campus. We do a lot of outreach events. One of the biggest ones that we have in the fall that we had a couple weeks, 3 weeks ago, was Smashing Pumpkins, where we buy a bunch of pumpkins and we go out on a tarp and we have a bat and some rage music and we just smash those things. It may not be an educational event, but it's really great to get people to mingle and to hang out and to get rid of some stress. Sometimes we'll have like workshops like this. We also have suicide prevention training called QPR. And we provide consultation to staff members about student well-being and student mental health. So we have a lot of different services that we offer. Most importantly, we have the individual counseling. And I think that's the thing that people come to CAPS for the most. We have couples and marital counseling. Only one member of the couple has to be a student. So if you have a spouse or significant other that does not go to UM-Flint, they can still come in as long as one person is a student. We have a case manager through Wolverine Essentials, and she can help connect to different resources. We're going to be offering support and skills groups coming up. One is for specifically for graduate or doctoral students. There's another one for healing from difficult relationships or breakups or heartache. And then we have some anxiety skills groups that are going to be starting. So if you don't already follow CAPS on Instagram, that's kind of one of our ways of getting information out. It's UM-Flint CAPS, and we usually post flyers and just psychoeducation, we call it, to help the campus community. And then our events are also on Campus Connections. So we have a lot of different wellness activities that we do. And then during like engagement or orientation, you can find us with a table and lots of goodies to give away and information and brochures. The things that we see most often, depression, anxiety, sometimes it's an adjustment to college, interpersonal relationships or family conflict. Sometimes we do see stronger issues. We might have like trauma or body image or even some substance abuse. Things that are very specific and maybe need more intensive therapy, we often refer out to the community providers. But to schedule an appointment with CAPS, you can stop by the office. You can call us. Our number is easy to remember because if you are on campus, it's 23456. If not, you still have to dial the area code in the 762, but the numbers are all in a row. You can stop by our office on the second floor of the USEN. It's room 264. And you can request an initial consultation online through our webpage. We do have crisis services. During business hours, we can help students that same day with walk-ins from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Usually after 4, we would have you go through our answering service, just because it wouldn't give us enough time to meet the students' needs. And a lot of times 4 o'clock is kind of a heavy scheduling time where a lot of students do want to come in for scheduled appointments. After hours, we have CAPS after hours. And that is our emergency answering service where we have trained crisis intervention specialists that will take your call and help you out through that. And to reach that, you just dial our same number, and then it'll say to press 0 for crisis intervention. So thanks for joining us. I hope this has been helpful for you. There's some credits about the slides and where you could find these if you wanted them. And I'll also be sending a copy to Dr. Lewis to share. So create that balance, manage your time, and kick some butt in graduate school because you're worth it.